Sair da escola já com uma formação profissional no currículo? Parece bom demais pra ser verdade, né? Pois é. No ensino técnico do Senac, isso é possível. É ensino médio junto com formação técnica, que acontece durante os 3 anos. Lá, eles usam metodologia para projetos, desenvolvendo competências como resolução de problemas, pensamento crítico e colaboração, além de valores éticos e sustentáveis. Quer saber? Senac. Acesse sp.senac.br/ensino médio e saiba mais.
Hi there, I am Sarah Jane Case, and I'm the host of your new favorite show, Enneagram and Coffee. This podcast is dedicated to discussing the beautiful and hard parts of being human. We discuss the Enneagram, a personality map that is taking over the world, for increased self-compassion, personal growth, and healthier relationships. Listen to Enneagram and Coffee on the iHeart app or wherever you get your podcasts.
Welcome to Book Talk for Book Talk with Jac and Amy, a podcast where we deep dive into the writing of your favorite novels.
This season, we are exploring Sarah J. Maas's second installment in the Crescent City series.
This is Jac.
And I'm Amy.
This is part 2 of this week's episode, where we're discussing chapters 44 through 47 in A House of Sky and Breath. The views expressed by the hosts are entirely their own and in no way represent the thoughts or intentions of the original author.
This podcast is a discussion, shared to spark thought and conversation on the characters and themes of this novel.
The interpretations presented in this podcast are just a few of many possibilities. Listeners are encouraged to read along and share their own analysis of the text.
Though the hosts speak mostly within the constraints of this book, series and extended universe spoilers may be discussed with or without warning.
Explicit language, as well as themes of sex, violence, abuse, depression, self-harm, and death will recur throughout this podcast. Listener discretion is advised.
If you are enjoying the podcast, check out our Patreon for more exclusive content. You can find us at patreon.com/Book Talk for Book Talk.
Chapter 46 starts, and we are in Hunt's point of view. So we get a little bit of that, mad and primal side of him.
Mm-hmm.
Quote, "He ascended into this plane of existence, of primal savagery. The moment that the Hind had appeared, he knew he had to take her out, if it meant getting Bryce to safety. Had to decide that it didn't matter if Dannon or Cormac or Therian got cooked in the process. He couldn't turn away from that precipice." It's like we knew that he was willing to kill his friends, but now we're like really seeing that he's like, you know what? I'd kill them all.
Mm-hmm.
I'd do it again. Gladly. In order to save Bryce, of course.
Yeah. I did stop to question, is Hunt actually really friends with them? Because he calls Rune Dannon, which he did in early Earth and Blood. And he does every now and then. But he's been calling Rune by his first name.
Probably because the idea of hurting his other lover hurts him too much. He probably
he
has to separate. Yeah, he has to disassociate. That's not Rune. That's Dannon. Rune he'll cherish forever. Note, though, I didn't even want to start counting. I started counting in this, chapters, in this section. I counted 5 lush/luscious.
Mm-hmm.
Couldn't do it. Lush is her new watery bowels. Everything is lush.
I want to point out that you typed out water bowls, and I retyped it for you.
I was going to read watery bowels anyway. It's fine.
You knew what you meant.
Yeah.
It took me a second.
Oh, I knew what I was going. You need to just jump there. Get with me.
So even Hunt, despite his current state, sees that this place is like the Garden of Eden. It is lush. It is luscious. Quote, "They'd walked into some ancient garden at the dawn of the world." I have to ask myself, though, we've already had this scene of the apple and sharing of the apple between Bryce and Hunt, which we compared to the Garden of Eden, and Bryce and Hunt, like Adam and Eve, now having access to the knowledge of truth and evil, or good and evil. So why is it important right now for Bryce and Hunt to be in a place like Garden of Eden after so many chapters removal from the apple scene?
Mm-hmm.
So like we've discussed, this place is a place of balance. It is a garden below the surface of the ocean. So we have ocean, we have air. And what we're about to see throughout this sequence is that through sex, Bryce and Hunt are about to balance each other.
Mm-hmm.
I also feel like why it's happening here is that Bryce is about to go through a rebirth.
Yeah.
So I'm going to argue during the sex that Bryce dies and is reborn.
Oh. I mean, it is called a little death.
Orgasm?
Yeah.
I did know that. I think you've told me that before. And they start, quote, naked. They face each other in that garden beneath the sea. Honestly, it sounds like they're babies in a womb, right?
No. Nope.
They're in a pocket surrounded by water.
All right.
Anyway, my real point is that Bryce is about to die and be reborn.
I was like, Amy, I'm over here. Garden of Eden, sex. First, man's first sin and
Original
everything.
sin,
Original
yeah.
sin and everything. They're about to sin it up. Babies in a womb. What? You can only have so many.
Sorry.
No, it's okay.
I took it one step too far.
Excuse me.
Please stop.
We are now about to enter the sex scene. It's very intense.
Sex.
ASMR. Sex noise.
You did that.
Amy, I can't believe you made that noise.
I am a vampire bat.
You'll never know. This is
I was
audio.
about to do this.
We're disgusting. It's only because I did it first, because I was faster.
Yeah, it's only because you were faster. I had
funny.
to maneuver my arms.
We're adults. And there's a lot of clues with the sex scene. SJM is trying to do a lot with the sex scene.
Mm-hmm.
Personally, this is one of my least favorite sex scenes in her books, just because of oh my god, the clues, the breadcrumbs. Okay, just let them fuck, whatever. But okay, so let's start. Bryce knows instinctively that Hunt is in a primal state and it should be resolved in a primal way. Quote, his magic burned in his veins like acid and he grunted against it. Hunt feels that Bryce needs to be saved. And he has yet to fully, quote unquote, claim her at this point. He's yet to seal that mate bond at the end of the day. And we are getting this imagery that without sex, there is no peace. So peace is sex, peace is bonding, sex is bonding, sex is power.
Mm-hmm.
Bryce is able to make their sex to be about a union and not necessarily a primal fuck, which I think SJM did do a good job of that. We clearly have gotten into the we've descended into chaos into this primal intense way, which could lead to a very glorious sex scene. That is not what we got. So
Jack,
I know
your disdain is showing.
This is a happy enough face for you now. My fake smile. But it is she does do a good job with it, where it ends up being primal but romantic. Hunt says, quote, I don't want to hurt you. You won't, she smiled softly, lovingly. I trust you. She closed the distance between them, mouth grazing over his peck, his heart. Bryce knows what she's doing, right? She's bringing this back to love, their connection.
And Hunt loves it. He loves love. The second Bryce kisses his heart, his lightning flares. I feel like he feels so taken care of.
It's
She loves me.
She does like me.
He just wants to reciprocate.
Yeah, he really is just oh my god, you guys.
I hit the jackpot.
I just love her so much. Yeah, no, Bryce, Hunt is the drunk, I love her.
Yeah.
Person. Or if he was drunk and Bryce tried to hit on him, he'd be I have a beautiful mate.
Leave me alone.
Leave me alone. So SJM, like I said, this isn't my favorite sex scene because SJM has a lot to get through. And there's a lot to look into and to tease out their power. Quote, lightning danced around her skin, along her hair, and she basked in it. took it into herself, let herself become it, become him, and let him become her, until they were two souls twining together at the bottom of the sea. Bryce had the vague sense of falling through air, through time and space, and then she found herself laid gently, reverently on the mossy ground. He's not even inside her.
Yeah, yeah.
They're just kissing.
And he's injecting her with his power.
Yeah. I mean, it is like we're setting us up for, I mean, there's not even foreplay happening here. Like, they're just making out. And we're setting ourselves, and SJM is setting us up for, like, this is going to be absolutely pure soul connecting for the two of them. Mm-hmm. Another quote. She needed him with her, in her, needed his strength and power and gentleness, needed that smile and humor and love. We know that Bryce loves his powerful side, and we keep saying that. And I'm going to continue saying that, so don't pretend like this is the last time. But it is a good reminder to know that she does love his soft side too. Yeah. Because we know, I think we see a lot more of Hunt loving every side of Bryce versus Bryce needing more sides of Hunt. Yeah. Now that she doesn't love every side of him, I think she needs more sides of him. But so he's a little softy, and she likes that Huntness in him. Quote. His eyes met her. Only lightning filled them. An avenging god. But, she still likes the power. And if Hunt is an avenging god, then does that make her a goddess? If they are the same power. If he is her and she is him, and power and power and power. Yeah. Then, A plus B equals C. But earlier in the book, we did compare the two of them to Chthona and Solus. Yeah. So, keep that in mind. And finally, in the next quote, the star on her chest flared, merging with his lightning. He laid a hand on top of it, claiming the star, the light, claiming her. And at the start of the book, Hunt was insecure because the light would shine for Cormac. And now here it is, shining for him. And he gets to claim it.
It feels very reminiscent of the first scene of them together at the CCB, where her light flares while they're watching Juniper dance. Yeah. And he puts his hand over the scar to cover it. Yeah. So I feel like we've come full circle to that. Because he was very content, very secure in their relationship, and then went through a bunch of insecurity. And now they've come back to that point. Mm-hmm. Which I think is very poetic on SJM's part.
It is very poetic.
Now, I want to interject some of my Marxist analysis and how this is the death of Bryce. Yes. Let's talk first about how, despite there not being penetration yet, Hunt's power is penetrating her essentially. As Hunt's lightning, quote, flowed over her, around her, she arched into it, gave herself over to it. We're seeing, for maybe the first time, Bryce really letting go of everything about her to accept a moment, right? Yeah. She's always got an agenda. She's always scheming behind the scenes. She's always thinking up a witty remark, but
she's present.
She's present. And I think this might be the first time we've ever seen her really present. And what I feel like this is a metaphor for is she's fully opening herself to her power. Yeah. Because she can only access her power through fully accepting Hunt. She thinks, quote, nothing lay between them and would never lie between them again. This could be said the same not only about their physical intimacy between Bryce and Hunt, but also the understanding Bryce has of her own power and how Hunt contributes to that power. And then when Bryce is like, I need him to penetrate me, let's skip to that. She thinks, quote, as Jac read earlier, quote, needed his strength and power. And that comes before gentleness, smile, humor, and love. So although this is a moment about love, as Jac suggests, I feel like this moment is also about surrender and really Bryce surrendering her humanity to accept her fate destiny.
Yeah, I like this.
I think that because there's a lot of violent words used during the actual penetrative sex.
Yeah, but it's just not the vibe it gives off, which is sometimes frustrating for some readers, maybe.
Please continue, Jac.
The thing is, I went through a series of mafia books in the midst of reading this, where I was like, you know what?
Hunt could be more violent.
There's one character and he breaks her hip bone. Not her, but one of his previous partners' hips.
From banging too hard.
I'm just saying.
That's a lot of pain.
I know.
Not
and he's
worth
supposed
it.
to be human too. I was like, none of this is I'm just curious. I'm just curious about it. Right as Hunt is about to go inside her for the first time, he comes to, right? Like he clears up a little bit. Quote, the lightning cleared from his eyes as if he willed it, as if he wanted her to see the male beneath. Pure Hunt. No one and nothing else. It was a question somehow, as if he were showing her every scar and wound, every dark corner, asking if he was what she really wanted. Bryce only smiled softly. I love you, she whispered. Shuddering, Hunt kissed her and slid home. Nothing had ever felt so right. The whole thing is like very romantic, and it's different than the other times that they were together. If you think about like when they were on the couch in book 1, and then her going down on him, and then him going down on her. There was like, those were more, it was connecting, but nothing like this. Like, this is that soul connection that, both are seeking, especially Hunt. The language, saying that I love you, they're showing the scars, and then how Hunt, quote, slid home. It's adding a romantic element with just the vocabulary that's chosen, with just the, just small words makes a big difference. Although I'm trying to imagine in sex being like, slide home, baby.
Sounds like he's playing baseball.
I know. Be like, what? It's romantic. Bryce, though, still needs that powerful side. She's got that fae. She needs that umbra mortis. Quote, she needed him wilder, needed him to release that edge of fear and rage and become her Hunt again. She tightened her legs around him and flipped them. Bryce is taking the power position. She is on top of him. She is like, nah, I need you to go all out. And I think, we kind of like we harp a little bit on Bryce about needing that umbra mortis side of him. But, I think she says it here, like she knows that's part of Hunt.
Yeah.
Even though Hunt doesn't like that part of himself, even though Hunt would much rather own a candle shop or a soap shop, as we've said, it's still part of him.
Yeah.
He is still capable of violence, and I think would choose it willingly sometimes. So, she knows that she has to tease it out of him, and tease it she does, because she's on top, and she just pumps 3 times. Like, that's it. Like that, it just 3 times. And she's trying to get him to lose it, to go full umbra mortis. And it works. It works because Hunt flips her back so that he's on top. And it's not until that moment when he loses it when they start to, again, fully connect.
Yeah.
Quote, Hunt roared. His power flowed over her, filled her, and she was him and he was her. And then his cock hit that perfect spot deep in her, and the world was only light. Damn. Okay.
He set off a bomb.
Yeah. Like, I know what spot that is, but like, what's that light? I'm not full of magic light, but okay. Side note, this other quote, then he was moving again, pushing, thrusting, that sent them sliding across the mossy floor. I just visually think of a snail.
I saw that note and I was like, ew, way to make it gross.
It's not hot. I don't think that's as hot as like she thought it was going to be. At least not in the visual in my head.
Yeah, I think the point is that
it's so aggressive. He's like
being aggressive.
Yeah,
it's just not.
A little slug. A little sex slug.
So if we ignore the sex slug and think about the other words to describe this sex scene, I want to point out some highlights.
Yes.
Bryce, quote, rose again, a steady, taunting slide, and then impaled herself.
Mm-hmm.
So we talk about being impaled by dicks in smut a lot.
Mm-hmm.
But what else do you impale things with?
Pointy things.
Pointy things, like swords.
And daggers.
You saw my note.
I did. But I was going to say more dicks.
Let's stick with swords and daggers.
Yeah.
Quote, release blasted through her. Hunt rode her through it all, nursing every drop of pleasure, and then he was moving again, punishing thrusts. We've got blasted, we've got punishing. It's just actually violent, even if we don't like the visual of slugs across the mossy floor. And Bryce is accepting that violence into her body because Hunt couldn't unleash it on the Hind, couldn't unleash it on the rest of the Triari.
Yeah,
so she's going to take it from him.
Love the visual, love the violence, love the like graphic of it all. Just stop sex slugging.
The point about the violence, though, is that in accepting Hunt's violence from him, she is killing her human self. She
Okay.
is being killed.
Yeah, love it. I'm willing to kill off my human self.
Just need to find you a Hunt.
I know. Might edit that one out. I don't know. We'll see.
Let's just be your truest self, Jack.
If I let myself be my truest self, like we would have to put some kind of like NC-17 warning on these episodes. Like, oh man. Their sex is lighting up the place. Quote, they filled with iridescent light. He was filled with light. Bryce reached a hand towards his blazing wings. Her own fingers, her hand, her arm, they radiated the same light, as if they had become filled with power, as if her light had leaked into him and his into her. Their powers are merging, you know? I mean, and like they're leaking into one another. And like, you know, I'm sure I can make some kind of like leaking joke in there, but pretend like I did. You know, the important thing is that she's taking on his power, but he's taking on her power
as well
for the first time as well. And this is super important because we're going to see that happen again before the final battle in CC3.
And I think it's important because, again, we're getting that visual of balance.
Yeah.
She's being balanced by his power. He's being balanced by hers.
Exactly. I have a question for this quote. Quote, Bryce's hand sliding for his balls, his fingers caressed her clit, began stroking. Okay, so like he's on top, but we know that he's like pressed towards her because he's kissing her and talking to her, which is already hard enough to go for her clit because they're like pressed. So that's already hard. And then she has to reach around to grab his balls. I think I have short arms.
You do have shorter arms.
Whoa!
No, I'm just teasing.
This is like when Amy told me I had a big head. I never thought I
did. No, I don't know that I don't think your arms are short.
I mean, this one's busted. I can't stretch it out fully.
I don't know if maybe it's just because you have a long torso. But honestly, as someone who's never had sex with a man, that sounds weird. This sounds like human pretzeling.
This sounds like someone who didn't practice it.
Yeah. SGM, did you do your homework?
No, but genuinely, I follow so many romance readers and they'll say like, do your due diligence or get Barbie dolls to figure it out. Because like, I just maybe I do have a really long torso.
You do have a very long torso.
Thank you. Okay.
It's not a bad thing.
No, I'm taking it as a compliment. I don't know if like I should, but I am.
Maybe SGM has really long arms.
This is how we find out. She has a short torso, long arms. It's like, if the thing is, if she's never done this with, does this mean she's done this with her partner? Have other people done this with their partner? Like, I can potentially understand touching his balls. You have to really twist for that. But then for him to also be rubbing her clit at the same time, if you guys could just send us a note, all you have to say is it's possible.
Like, yeah. Just tell us if you practiced this.
Just like, I would let you know, but I have no one to know.
I don't have a man, so I can't tell you.
I know. You're engaged to a woman, so we're in a tricky spot here.
Yeah.
Bryce and Hunt finally come at the same time, although this is Bryce's second time coming. So, like, good for her. Good for Hunt.
Good for her.
Quote, she was falling, had the distant sense of screaming her pleasure to the surface miles above, of an orgasm rocking through her, reducing her mind to rubble. She was vaguely conscious of Hunt pumping into her, spilling into her over and over, falling through time and space and light and shadow. Up was down and down was up, and they were the only beings in existence, here in the garden, locked away from time. Something cold and hard pushed into her back. So at this moment, they teleported. And it's the, like, we get that they can travel through space, but it's the time thing.
Yeah.
Because S.J.M.'s mentions time before, that they can travel through time. But they've only gone that intense with sex.
So maybe they went back in time and then came back to the present.
God, the way I'd be
know.
like, I don't know. I'd be like, we have to like test this. Like, I'd be so determined. Be like, can we go through time?
Yeah. Can we go back?
Like, that sounds like a really bad porn. Like, we have to go back in time. Go to the future and warn everyone. To the Huntmobile. I don't know.
Quick, where's your Viagra?
Why does he need Viagra?
I'm just joking.
Oh, that's fine.
Probably because they use it so, like they have sex so much.
He's like, I don't want to.
Yeah, what if he's got erectile dysfunction?
He's like, you wanted to go all the way to dinosaurs. Do you think I have any more left in me to get you back home? Like, I got you so far.
Let me die here.
I choose death with dinosaurs.
Look, the meteor's coming.
Thank God. I embrace this. I can't screw you anymore. Back to the present day. Do you think different positions get you farther in time?
I don't know.
Like,
it depends on how far they snail cross the floor.
okay, hold on. These are different genres. These are different books, different book titles, right? Rutting to Rome.
Oh my gosh. Now I want to think one.
Dogging till dawn.
Oh my god. Thrusting through time.
I think we're onto something here. Somebody trademark that.
So I want to just go back to the quote that you read. Bryce's mind is reduced to rubble. Mm-hmm. So not literally been destroyed, but she's been destroyed. Mm-hmm, just proving my death to Bryce.
I love that.
I think the reason why she's able to teleport upon release is because her human self, or Bryce of Earth and Blood, has been destroyed.
Yeah.
That final barrier has been knocked down, and therefore she can now teleport with Hunt's powerful assistance. She's fully taken on the mantle of her power because Hunt was able to help her.
Yeah. It's also kind of a cool note that they teleport out of there, because this is such like imagery of Eden, and bite the apple, original sin, nudity, sex, get booted out of Eden.
Yeah.
Kind of like they got sexed out of Eden the way that
Adam and Eve
sexed out of Eden. Back with the idiot bros. My note. That's Ithan and all them.
In case you were
wondering.
You didn't know.
They let the sprites out, and the sprites introduce themselves. That they are the descendants of Persina Phaloth.
I have no idea.
They're descendants of the Lady of Cinders. And then we have this quote. Right, Ithan said, as if that meant anything to him. He knew nothing about sprites and their hierarchies, only that they'd been banished from Sky and Breath ages ago for a failed rebellion. They'd been deemed lower ever since. And it feels like an excuse, like, oh, they've been deemed lower, so I don't know anything about them.
Yeah, I didn't pay attention in school.
Yeah, and then just a note, like, as if that meant anything to him.
Yeah, he's such a dipshit.
Because again, it comes into language. This is like we're nitpicking, because this is like English literature. You could say, right, Ithan was confused or unsure or had never heard that name before, but as if it had mattered.
Right, or tried to recall from his studies at school.
Yeah, the language use is very important, because it shows how brazen and how uncaring he is.
Right.
We then meet Ariadne the dragon. And there seems to be a connection with her and Flynn right off the bat that I think it's important because of her name. Mm-hmm. Ariadne is from Greek mythology, and she is the daughter of Pasiphae and Cretan king Minos. And Minos?
Yeah, King Minos.
Oh, is that Minos?
Mm-hmm.
King Minos? Oh, damn. All right, King Minos. She fell in love with Theseus, and with a thread of glittering jewels, she helps him escape the labyrinth from where he, fights the Minotaur. Now, there's two versions to the legend. A, she's abandoned by Theseus and hangs herself, or B, Theseus carries her to Naxos and then leaves her there to die. Either way, he sucks.
Theseus is awful.
Theseus sucks. But do you know who she's saved from? That is Dionysus. Dionysus saves her. and marries her. And Dionysus is the god of fruitfulness and vegetation, also known for being the god of wine and ecstasy. It sounds a lot like Flynn. Now, why does it sound like Flynn, Amy?
Sounds like Flynn not only because it's partying and drinking and constantly being in a induced ecstasy. We also learn in Flame and Shadow that his powers are plants and vines, vegetation, fruitfulness. He's got earth magic that involves plants, which is very rare for Velbar and Fae. His parents are also known as Lord and Lady Hawthorne, just pointing that out there as more planty references.
Yep. So, like there's a lot there as to potential, but if you're like, hey, those names mean nothing, here's how their interaction goes down. Quote, "The dragon stared Flynn down. He gave her a charming smile back. Her chin lifted. Ariadne." Flynn arched a brow. "A dragon named Ariadne? I suppose you have a better name for me?" She shot back. "Skull Crusher, Wing Doomed, Light Eater." Flynn ticked them off his fingers. She snorted, and the hint of amusement had Ithan realizing the dragon was beautiful. Flynn winked. She scowled. Money down. That's their story. They're going to be part of it. They're going to be in the future. Also, like, Ithan just again pisses me off here, where it's like, she laughed. She's beautiful. It took me this long to realize it. And because she smiled is what made me think that she's pretty. Because women have to smile.
Or she thought my friend was funny.
Yeah.
Huh. Maybe she's okay.
Maybe she's cute.
Ithan drives me crazy. I really, really, really was disappointed that we didn't get more Flynn and Ariadne in Flame and Shadow. But I do hope for it in the future.
I would have taken Ethan's out and put their story in.
Yep.
Yeah. One more quote just for cuteness. "What about you, sweetheart?" Flynn purred at the dragon, like the Fey male literally couldn't help himself. Her eyes burned crimson. "I'm beyond your pay grade, lordling. Try me." I'm so into it. Thank you. I'd like to order 2, please. I would want more.
Yeah, it's such a good start to an angry puppy to lovers. As if you remember from our summer.
We're coining that. Angry puppy to lovers. Yeah. Like, that's the only way that I will choose to identify these things.
Because they're not enemies.
They're not enemies to lovers. Stop calling things enemies to lovers.
I think we see a couple times throughout this episode that there are hints about Sigrid's future in Flame and Shadow. And I want to slow down to point them out because they're just little breadcrumbs that I think are going to have payouts later. We get some hints about Sigrid as a mystic, thanks to the sprites, and it does have implications for how she acts in Flame and Shadow. The fire sprites tell the crew that, quote, "the wolf female is defiant. The astronomer thinks he'll break her one day. I'm not so sure." Ithan is being warned. Right now, Sigrid cannot be controlled. She defies orders all the time. And that turns out to be her personality.
Yeah.
Wow,
all the way
shocker, in Flame and Shadow.
All into death.
Into death and beyond death.
Yep. We're back on the ship. We're with Bryce and everyone. Hunt is on cloud 9. They just had sex. He's like... Yeah, he's doing great. Quote, "Their magics merged. He didn't know how to describe it. The feeling of her magic winding through him, like he existed all at once and not at all, like he could craft whatever he wished from thin air, and nothing would be denied to him. Did she live with this day after day, a slumbering little kernel of creation?" I never really got that from Bryce, that feeling of that she feels like she could do anything from it. So it's interesting that this is Hunt's perspective on that power. It kind of feels like he's tapping into the quote unquote divine feminine, that possible, that potential of creation of life. Yeah. That only Bryce could wield because, I don't think that that's something that if you were to ask me about Bryce's power and how it feels like that she feels like when she has that power, I would not describe it as her feeling like, nothing would be denied to her, that she can do anything. She actually feels like, she says often she doesn't have any power. Right. All she can do is go bright. So I'm not saying that that's not what he's feeling, but I find that what it sounds like to be a much more feminine side of power that he's grasping onto.
I think that's a really interesting point about it being the divine feminine that he's kind of tapping into. I didn't think of it that way, but I do like that idea that there's something really powerful about the divine feminine that he's never accessed before.
Mm-hmm.
I also think that this is actually a really, really important nugget for Flame and Shadow and for the extent of Bryce's abilities. So Bryce, at her truest form, only has her starlight.
Mm-hmm.
However, now that she's had sex, she's fully charged and she can access all of her other powers.
Yeah.
And Hunt has, through that process, merged powers with her. He's accepted some of her power into him. We know Hunt is like the strongest angel to have ever existed because he was created by demons of hell.
Yeah.
And isn't just pure angel. So for him to feel awe at the power in Bryce and what that feels like tells us something, right? That he, the most powerful angel to have ever existed, is like, oh shit, she's got a lot of power. She could do a lot.
Yeah.
What does that feel like?
Yeah.
I think that's super important because he's almost like humbled by it.
Mm-hmm.
And that feels gargantuan to me. And the reason why Bryce doesn't feel it is because either A, she's always felt this way, or no, she has no context for how what the power feels like, right? She had starlight, and then all of a sudden she got a giant well put inside her by the heart gate. So she doesn't understand the context of the power that she's been given. So how could she ever really know the full extent of her powers? Because if you think about the Autumn King or Rune, they don't actually use a lot of power that like impresses us.
Yeah.
Not the way that Hunt does.
Yeah.
She's never really thought about, and we've never really thought about, what does it mean for her to have more power than the Autumn King or Rune? Because there's nothing to compare it to.
Okay, I have two thoughts.
Okay.
One is, we know that Midgard, they're not powerful the way that they used to be. Like, over in Prythian, that's what their power should have been.
Yeah.
And that is, like, way more intense. This power is a little bit from Thea.
Yeah.
Which is original power from Prythian.
Yeah, that's true.
So it almost reminds me of, like, when Azrael charged her up, she was like, it's like, that's the pure stuff type thing.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering if that's what Hunt is feeling. Is that like kind of like the, the clean stuff. 2, I'm very annoyed that what Bryce took away from this was not, like over in Crescent City 3, we need to cross this and you need to winnow. I need power. Azrael, take off your pants. I can get us over there real fast. I can get us over to the other side of the planet if you want me to.
I could get us back to the prison cell where we can have some privacy.
Real fast.
It's amazing.
Nesta, hold my hand.
Or my hair.
Whatever. Create that art, someone. Yes, please. Bryce wants answers, though. She goes up to Cormac and she wants to know something. Quote, Rune had looked thoroughly uncomfortable, but Therian had laughed at Hunt's disheveled hair and whatever stupid happiness was on his face and said, good work bringing our boy back, legs. These little moments, the reason why I think it's important to point these out is because that's what makes these characters real in a very unreal situation. Like, you can just visually see this. You can, like, a group of friends, right? Like, any group of friends would be, like, teasing them. You have the sibling that's just like, I hate this. I hate this very much. Why is my sister covered in moss? Like, what's going on? He's, like, pulling out twigs out of her hair. And he's like, I hate you're my baby sister. But, like, those moments are important to just kind of, like, ground us. Bryce, though, is an absolute queen. And I just have to read this quote. And this is what Bryce is telling Cormac. Quote, right at the end of banging Hunt's brains out, right when we came together, we wound up in the airlock. Like,
she's real proud.
She's like, I banged his brains out and we came together.
I'm a good fuck.
Yeah, she's real proud, as she should be. Cormac comes to the conclusion that maybe Bryce needs Hunt's power for teleporting. Quote, I can't tell if that's an insult or not, Bryce said. Hunt lifted his brows. In what way? If my powers only work if my big, tough male helps me out? It can't be romantic, Hunt demanded. Bryce huffed. I'm an independent female. All right, Hunt said, laughing softly. Let's just say that I am like some magical token in a video game, and when you use me, you level up. I see what SJM is doing, though. Like, she's getting ahead of the argument. She's getting ahead of the, like, wait, you're telling me that the one strong female character can't do this without the man? And I don't know, it works for me. I'm like, all right. Like, you know, I like the way, I like the spin that she put on it. I appreciate when someone gets ahead of the argument.
Yeah.
Now, you know, could someone still be annoyed? Potentially.
Yeah.
Am I? I'm easy to please. I know it doesn't sound like it, but I just I like that she recognized it.
Yeah. I like that she recognized it, and I like the fact that Bryce is like, I don't like this. My feminism doesn't like this, even though I enjoyed banging you. I think it's so funny, and I also think it's delivered in a really great way that allows us to accept this. Like, it's in character, it's with the humor we're familiar with between these characters, and delivering important information like that, for in my mind, just makes it easier to accept. Like, okay, I'll go with the flow. And
I know there's some people who may still have issues with it, and that's totally okay.
Yeah.
Like, if you listen to this or read this and you're like, no, I really am annoyed that SJM has to have a female character that can't have power on her own. Or there's another thing that SJM does, and not just her, but a lot of like fantasy readers, that they strip away female powers in order to succeed. Think Aelin. Nesta. Yeah. Like, and that's a real thing. Like, that's you know, that sucks. But, you know, in this moment, she got me in a good mood. I just happened to be happy thinking about thrusting through time with Azrael. That's the book. That's not what I'm doing. That's the name of the book. Amy, what's that?
An ad break.
We'll be right back.
Nice. Fall has officially started here in Los Angeles, and that means we finally get to do fall activities.
I have been counting down the days for when I can go to pumpkin patches, maybe even hit up an apple orchard, and I get to do all of it looking super cute in my Quince boyfriend sweater.
This weather is perfect for my dark academia vibes, and I'm so excited to bust out my washable silk blouse because you know I'm going to be taking pictures.
Quince is known for their Mongolian cashmere sweaters from $50. And that's not all. Quince has so many other amazing things on their website.
All of those items are priced 50 to 80% less than similar brands.
That includes leather jackets, cotton cardigans, soft denim. Like, my entire fall wardrobe is genuinely turning into Quince wardrobe.
By partnering directly with top factories and cutting out the cost of the middleman, we get savings as the customer.
One of my favorite parts about Quince is the fact that they only work with factories that use safe, ethical, and responsible manufacturing practices. And they still manage to get premium fabrics and finishes for that, you know, luxury feeling for every item that they have.
Get cozy in Quince's high-quality wardrobe essentials. Go to quince.com/booktalk for free shipping on your order and 365-day returns. That's Quince, QUINCE.com/booktalk, BOOKTALK, to get free shipping and 365-day returns. That's quince.com/booktalk.
So the chapter ends with them discovering, hard shift of the mood, that Sofie is dead. We're now in chapter 47, and everyone is at the morgue, and they're there with Cormac. And you can really see how close they've all become. Quote, Rune stepped to his cousin's side, put a hand on his shoulder. I'm sorry. Bryce's throat ached. She let go of Hunt's hand to approach Cormac, touching his other shoulder.
I really appreciate that Rune and Bryce got out of their way to comfort Cormac, because it's not like they really actually liked him at the start of this novel.
Which is a shame, because he's Mac Daddy.
He is Mac Daddy. I do want to point out that Cormac lost his mate.
Yeah.
This is his mate. He is grieving. Bryce just mated with her mate. So
probably smells like it too.
Probably smells like it too. And so it makes sense that she's got so much empathy for Cormac right now, because she can't even imagine being without Hunt. She was willing to sacrifice everybody else to save Hunt.
Yeah.
Then we have Rune, who doesn't know, but can probably sense that Day is his mate.
Mm-hmm.
And so I can only imagine him imagining what it would be like to not have Day in his life anymore. So these reactions make sense, even though they've bickered with Cormac.
Yeah.
And they don't necessarily trust Cormac either, but they can feel empathy for him.
Yep. And then we get the saddest quote. Cormac slid his fingers beneath the black cloth and pulled out a blue-tinged, stiff hand. He clasped it to his own, kissing the dead fingers. His shoulders began to shake as tears flowed. It hurts my heart. I mean, like, I saw my mom do that with my dad, so, at the viewing. So, like, it hurts. It sucks. She does a great job showing that. But it does make me think about the other male in this book who lost their mate, and that is Baxian. And that we know that Baxian will have lost Danica, but the difference is that Cormac embraces death when the time comes, and Baxian's been pushing forward.
Yeah, and I thought a lot about this one after I read your note about why is that difference there. And it does make me wonder if, because Cormac has the chance to say goodbye, does he have more chance to make peace and therefore choose to join Sofie through his actions of sacrificing himself to do the hit on the spine? Baxian, on the other hand, never got that chance to say goodbye to Danica. And it does make me wonder in some ways, because he never faced her death physically, is there part of his mind that is like, I can tell myself a lie about it never happening? And so he can't necessarily move on because he's never had that opportunity to really let go.
Maybe. I can definitely see that being an element in there. I remember last episode we talked about Baxian being able to connect with friends. And that's a way that I think Danica taught him. Yeah. Is like, you have to connect to friends.
And Sofie didn't really have friends that we know of.
No, Sofie had the death camp. Yeah. Like, and she had Emil.
And she had Ophian.
And Ophian. There's a lot of reasons why Baxian continues to live and Cormac does not. Yeah. In these chapters, Tharian has been growing. We don't need to see it head on, but we can see it happening in the outskirts. First, we get that he's willing to stay with them and get caught when the Hind was after them. And then we also have this moment, quote, Tharian, who'd been poring over the coroner's files on Sofie at the desk by the far wall, said gently, I'm sorry if I gave you false hope. That's very different. We are getting a lot of different Tharians right now. And something big has shifted in him. Now, it's not a permanent shift. We're going to see him digress real fast. But it reminds me of Wings in Ruin, where Nesta had a lot of growing outside in the periphery. And that's what's happening right now with Tharian.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. And Nesta had a regression, which Tharian will as well.
So now that we have it confirmed that Sofie is dead, Cormac is determined to find Emil. But Bryce pushes him on that. Quote, you ready to be a single dad? Bryce drawled. You're going to take the kid in and what? Bring him to Avalon? That'll be a really great place for him. Cormac stiffened. I hadn't planned that far. Are you suggesting that I leave that child alone in the world? Bryce shrugged, studying her nails. Felt Hunt looking at her closely. Okay, so Bryce isn't wrong. That Emil deserves to have a normal chance to live. That he deserves to live with humans and everything. And yeah, that's why she...
Go ahead.
I'm like, yeah, that's the whole point of like why she sends him with her family. But I just want to say Bryce does the right thing.
For Emil.
However, was Emil Cormac's last reason to live? Because that was for Sofie. And would his story have been different had Bryce let Cormac be more a part of the decisions when it comes to Emil? Yeah. And I'm not saying that she killed Cormac. I'm just saying that I think the path that he might have chosen would have been different.
I think that's an excellent point. As you're saying this, it reminds me that Sofie asked Cormac to take care of Emil.
Yeah.
So
that was her last wish.
That was her last wish. And so Bryce
overrode that completely.
Overrode Emil's last guardian's last wish for him. And chose a future for him without consulting the person closest to his family. And that
It's not great. Like,
it's very questionable.
Yeah. Emil, it's going to work out for him. Great.
Right.
But Cormac should have been involved in that conversation.
Right. Especially since if Bryce's biggest concern about this is because Emil is human and not Thunderbird, unlike Cormac's expectations, she's obviously expecting the worst out of Cormac by not telling him the truth. So it does feel icky for me. Go ahead.
Sorry, especially like what is it about this moment that she chooses to still not tell him?
Yeah.
That's what's icky, is like she sees the emotional connection. I understand why she might not have said anything up until this point, but she can see how devastated he is by this.
Yeah.
Why not bring him in?
Yeah.
I don't like it.
I don't like it either.
Hunt, though, is catching on that Bryce is hiding something, and it's going to challenge, and it's, just kind of like, just little hints. Like, he's like, something's coming.
Yeah.
We're going to have a big talk. It does help her case, though, that they've had sex, so. Therian is with the other mayor at this point, and he's admiring the ship. Quote, he supposed that being the River Queen's captain of intelligence granted him access, but he had no idea any of this existed. His title was a joke. The shift happened, right? Like we were talking about, there's a shift that happened with Therian.
Yeah.
It happened pre-saving, right? Like, so they're like running for their life. And then at this point, and I think he's just like back to his captain whatever-ness of it all. And the fact that like he's never heard of any of these things that are happening. And even the way that he views Sendas is adding, like you can see him in his own little mini spiral. Quote, she faced him fully and had a wonderfully curvy body, he noticed, with the sort of ass that he'd like to sink his teeth into. But the River Queen's cold face rippled through his mind, and Therian turned to the windows behind the commander. Not his fiance's mind.
No.
The River Queen's mind, his mother-in-law's mind. And he's mad that it's like another woman that he can't have. And it's like, but would he even want Sandas if he wasn't wishing that he knew more? Like, I think Sandas is probably just as hot as he describes. But, it doesn't go unnoticed by me that here he is questioning his title, questioning if he's even good enough, questioning, wow, I can't believe this world that this ship exists. And next thing he does is like, well, there's another person I can't sleep with.
Really, everything comes back to the River Queen treats me like shit.
Yeah. It comes back to like that he just can't get what he wants, but he doesn't know what he wants.
Yeah. And, as I was reading this, it makes me think that this reaction that Therian has of the River Queen's cold face coming to his mind, it's not unlike Hunt seeing Sandriel's face when he's experiencing PTSD moments.
Yeah.
And that's not to say the River Queen has abused him. We don't know that for a fact. We only know Therian's perspective on it. And Therian's perspective is he's been mistreated.
Yep.
And so I think there is something to say about because he believes he's been mistreated, he can show symptoms of traumatic reactions.
Yes.
And that's what we're seeing here. And so it does make me question, again, to what extent is his truth?
Yeah.
And to what extent is his perspective warped?
Yep.
And it's, I don't know.
It's a fine line with him.
Yeah. There is another moment in this section that I think Estrium is using to lay some groundwork about Sigrid's story in Flame and Shadow. Sandas warns Therian against the River Queen potentially using Sofie's corpse and reanimating it. At her insinuation, Therian feels, quote, cold horror sluiced through him, a weapon without a conscience or soul. Dun, dun, dun.
Dun, dun, dun.
We've gotten a lot of warnings about Reapers and bringing the dead back to life throughout Sky and Breath. We're going to continue to see that in this book. And I don't think I was surprised that the Reaper storyline came about in Flame and Shadow.
Yeah.
I just think I thought it was going to like happen to Cormac or someone else, not Sigrid.
Is Ithan and Hypaxia summoning in the third book?
They reanimate her.
No, I know that. But at one point, they try to summon the Underking or something like that. And it goes wrong. And they go running away.
Oh, no. That's definitely the third book.
Okay.
Oh, no. They do try to summon.
In this book,
they
right?
try to summon Connor in this book
one.
after the engagement party.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Sorry. Every once in a while, I'll think about like how much more is left in this book.
There's so much more
There's
left in this
the engagement
book.
party. There's the summoning. Then there's everything that goes down.
We still have like...
Oh, and we have them like the temple scene.
Yeah.
Where Baxi help.
And then the Asteri Palace. Like we have... So much is about to happen in the next 270 pages.
Yeah.
280 pages. Like, it's mind-boggling.
Yeah, like every once in a while I'll think of like, wait, is that this book? Because I knew that was in this book, but at this point I'm like, is it? Because there's just so much to do.
Yeah, and we're over 520 pages in.
Yep.
And there's only 800 pages.
Mm-hmm.
It's crazy.
Yeah. Therian is surprised that the Ocean Queen says that she doesn't want to be the new ruler of after the Asteri. Quote, this is Senda's talking to him. Quote, she remembers a time before the Asteri, when leaders were fairly elected. That is what she wishes to achieve once more. The dark ocean passed beyond the glass. Therian couldn't suppress his bitter laugh. And you believed her? Sendas gave him a pitying look. I'm sorry the River Queen has abused your trust so much that you don't. I'm sorry that you're naive enough to believe everything your queen says, he countered. Therian's back.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he's back to his angry ways. He's back to assuming that others are just as manipulative. And he's back to being bitter.
Yeah. I mean, what this has shown me is that he is ultimately a pessimist.
Mm-hmm.
And his experiences have made him that way.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever his expectations were of the River Queen or of others in his life, those expectations have been disappointed.
Yeah.
So he's not likely to trust anyone. It's sad because he can't even hide that fact about himself. He can't hide his true thoughts. Quote, you could be more, Sendes said, seeming to read the dread on his face. At a place like this, we don't need to lie and scheme here. I gave you the other half of the quote.
I'm content where I am, Therian said quickly. His queen would never let him leave anyway. We should read quotes like that more often.
Yeah, we should.
Therian is closed off to other opinions. He only knows the way of life that he knows, and it's what he's used to, and that's his only truth. And he assumes that this is going to be a trap, and that engaging with her is the only option. Like, nope, this is a trap. I'm going to keep my mouth shut.
Mm-hmm.
And, you can really understand why he makes the choice that he makes at the very end.
Yeah.
It's a dumb choice. It is. I mean, especially when you look at it and you're like, you could have come here instead.
Yeah.
It's like he's feeling desperate.
He's feeling desperate, and he doesn't see the difference between the Ocean Queen and the River Queen.
Mm-hmm.
So let's go to the Viper Queen instead.
Yeah.
Because she's so much better.
Yeah.
It does make me curious, this offer Sendes makes. I know that we're going to see Therian come back here in Flame and Shadow. However, I wonder if Sendes and the Depth Charger, that's what it's called, are going to appear even further down the line.
Yeah.
And if that's where Therian will ultimately end up, because this is Eden.
Yeah.
And this is the balance that he's been striving for, really.
Yeah.
And right now, he's rejecting it.
He is rejecting it. It's also weird to think that Lydia's kids are on board.
Yeah.
I was trying to see if I could find, like,
A
two
hint.
blonde hair kids ran away, which would have been cool.
I think only one of them's blonde.
Something. I would have liked,
Yeah, I understand.
something.
I actually appreciate that there's no.
I would have liked the smallest, like, in her descriptions of, like, people scattered about. One adult, one, two twins or something. You know what I mean? It just would have been like a nice little peekaboo.
Yeah.
It wouldn't even have been a clue about Lydia. It just would have been like a later on you come back.
Yeah,
to
you're
look
like,
at it.
they were there the whole time.
Yeah. Still in Therian's point of view, quote, when he woke, he'd returned to Lunathian, to the Blue Court. It was getting harder to ignore the part of him that didn't want to go home at all. Our boy is getting desperate, and desperate animals will chew off their own leg if they have to. Rune. Amy's note.
Stop it!
Desperate. The funny thing is I was like genuinely writing like desperate animals will chew off their own leg, and then as I did that I started giggling to myself. I was like Rune.
I can see that in my own mind.
I look forward to that episode. Amy's eyes are screaming, "You sick fuck."
I don't know if I'm looking forward to it.
I'm already smiling. Speaking of Rune, we're now in his point of view, and he's meeting with Day. Day gets the news about Sofie's passing, and she's really sad. She takes it hard because Day respected Sofie and is sad to hear the confirmation of her death. Quote, "She went to the Kavala death camp to save her brother, did everything Ophian commanders asked her just so she could get scraps of information about him." I feel like this is Lydia seeing herself in Sofie.
Mm-hmm.
The fact that she had to sacrifice so much for her kids.
Yeah.
Of herself for her kids.
Yeah. And I mean, Lydia or Day basically says that and tells that to Rune, quote, "I did like her. I admired her courage, her loyalty. She was a kindred spirit in many ways."
Mm-hmm.
Like you said,
Mm-hmm.
Lydia's sacrifices for her son are the same sacrifices Sofie made for Emil in a lot of ways. And really, that should be a clue to Rune that Day is capable of anything in order to accomplish her ultimate goal. If we know that Sofie is willing to go into a death camp to save her brother, is willing to drown and scratch things into her body, codes in her body, what is Day capable of?
Seriously.
And she's told you she thinks of herself as a monster.
Yeah. I mean, they talk about kids here too.
Yeah.
Which is also funny. Do you talk about it?
Yeah, I
do.
I
won't mention
do.
it. Day is definitely thinking about her kids, and it's a clue to Lydia's future. Quote, Day went on, "To be free of the Asteri, there are things that we all must do that will leave a mark on our souls. It's the cost, so that our children and their children won't ever need to pay it, so they'll know a world of freedom and plenty." How can you have this conversation with someone and you're getting like their soul, basically? Like they are bearing, like she is bearing herself. Like you are hearing her true wishes. She is telling you, I am sacrificing my soul, my everything, so that the kids and the future kids will be able to live on. And yet he doesn't hear a freaking thing about it, and he won't accept her later.
I feel like Rune is male gazing Day.
Mm-hmm.
I also think Day is female gazing Rune.
Mm-hmm.
So we know why Rune is male gazing her, right? Because
she's pretty and
she's
smells
pretty
good
and smells good and sounds good.
And he's a dumb boy.
And she's doing admirable things, but he doesn't understand what that really is.
Yeah.
Day, on the flip side, is like, Rune, you'd be a great dad. Rune says he doesn't think he would be a good dad because he didn't have a good dad. And Day insists, quote, "That doesn't seem true. You are kind and caring and seem to love those around you. I can't think of anything else needed to be a father."
I feel like I've had this conversation with my ex.
Day Lulu.
Boy, was I Day Lulu.
And Lydia is practically screaming right now, "Be my baby daddy."
I think you'd be a great dad.
Mm-hmm. You could be the dad to my children.
Let's get going.
It just makes me really sad because both of them are going to end up disappointed. He's disappointed that she's this evil quote unquote person. And she's disappointed because he said he saw her soul and he's not capable of actually seeing her soul.
Mm-mm.
So the reason why we're here, though, is Rune's had trouble sleeping and Day was trying to talk to him, make sure he was safe. So she offers to tell him a story to help him fall asleep. Quote, "Once upon a time, before Luna hunted the heavens and Solus warmed Chthonia's body, before Ogenis blanketed Midgard with water and twined our fates together." I feel like there's a lot hidden in here.
Yeah, which is why I was like, Amy, all you.
So twined our fates together. We've theorized before is the cauldron or the mother who is very involved in fates. And I know that Day is speaking to their involvement together in rebel activity, but it also feels more like mate stuff. Like Lydia is sensing this as well. We also have Luna. Before Luna hunted the heavens. Does that mean Luna hunted on the earth before the heavens? Mm-hmm. Which goes back to my theory that Luna was Aelin.
Yeah.
So the reason why I bring this up is I wonder if these characters, Luna, Solus, Chthona, Ogenis, and are going to be characters we're going to actually see later. Not in Flame and Shadow, but somewhere down the line.
Like a whole new series.
Or we're going to find out that we actually already knew them and they're just part of history in Midgard because
Yeah.
the Fae came to this land 15,000 years ago.
Yep.
And usually it's normal people who become legend.
Yeah.
Right? So that's my thinking. I'm excited to see if it comes up in the future. Who knows? The reason why I bring that up is because, again, going back to Throne of Glass, we do get to see the gods.
Yeah.
And so I can only expect SJM to do something similar.
Yeah.
There are also clues throughout Day's story that she is in fact talking about herself
Yeah.
and Lydia,
Yep.
aka her.
Yes.
Quote, as she ran, she pleaded with the forest she loved so dearly to help her. So it did. First, it transformed her into a deer, so she might be as swift as the wind. But his hounds outraced her, closing in swiftly. Deer. Lydia's a deer shifter. Wind. Rune told Day that he reminds her of the wind.
She reminds him
She
of them.
reminds him of the wind. I literally wrote that. How did I not read it? And the hounds sound a lot like dreadwolves to me. And then Day also tells us her true desire. Quote, what she wanted was a true heart to love her, to run wild with her through the forest, which I think Rune could do. He is a wild boy.
Oh, yeah.
He does have a good heart.
Yeah, somewhere.
He's just dumb.
Yeah, he's so dumb, but so pretty.
Rune falls asleep before Day can finish the story, and when he wakes up, he sees her sleeping on her couch, so he walks toward her. And as he does, he thinks about a fairy tale that he's heard. Quote, a princess of fire, sleeping, waiting for a night to awaken her. He knew that story. It tugged at the back of his mind. A sleeping warrior princess surrounded by a ring of fire, damned to lie there until a warrior brave enough to face the flames could cross them. Okay, just because I've had a lot of Kingdom of Ash in my mind, this sounds like it could be a variation of Aylin's capture and rescue.
Okay.
Because she's a princess of fire.
Yeah.
She was laid in a coffin.
Oh, right.
Her knights came to rescue her.
Mm-hmm.
Never mind that she got out herself.
Of course, history will forget that, though.
And never mind that, I mean, she also set the entire tent on fire. So, just thoughts.
Man, I should really read that book.
It's really good.
I forgot so much.
You know, he's also walking towards Day, who is made of fire, who is Aylin's ancestor. So, you know, it works out. It works out in my brain. And like we said, or like I just said, normal people become legend.
Mm-hmm.
It would make sense that the story he's thinking of is actually about Aylin.
Yeah, I like that. I like that a lot.
Thank you.
Lydia and Rune fall asleep together, but on like their separate couches, and Rune wakes up and he goes to admire Lydia's sleeping form, and she opens her eyes and she freaks out. Quote, Day jumped from her couch, walking around it, putting it between them, like he'd crossed some major line. I was a little confused with this. Like, there's so many reasons why I could see her getting kind of like freaked out by it. It could be that, you know, he does say that like with her asleep, he could see some of her hair and stuff. And he also said that, I mean, he's also like really close to her, admiring her. Maybe it was too intimate. Maybe she knew that her shadow, like her walls are down. Like there's a couple of reasons why she would get freaked out, but I don't know. I just was like, just your thoughts. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, it does feel really weird when she tells a story that's essentially a parable that is her life.
Yeah.
Right? But it also, the same can also be true that she's unwilling to be fully vulnerable and tell her full story. So she has to hide behind her disguise, has to hide behind a fairy tale that is her life.
Yeah.
Also, let's think about the last time we know she had sex with Pollux. He started while she was asleep.
Yeah.
And is what's happening here a trauma response of being snuck up upon while sleeping?
Yeah. Oh, that's a good, I like that. That's an interesting one.
So,
I like that.
You know, she can't say no to Pollux, but she can say no to Rune, right? So she doesn't, I think it was instinct on her part. And it was survivor's instinct.
I like that. I mean, I don't. That sucks. That's sad. I hate it. But good analysis.
Thank you. With that, we end the second part of Sky and Breath. We've gone through 6 levels of hell, if you're paying attention.
I'm not.
In the first book, Earth and Blood, we went through the first 4 levels of hell. And in Sky and Breath, we go through the remaining 3. Part 3 is the pit, which is the last part of hell.
And that's where she ends up in hell, but not actually in hell.
Yep.
Wow. Good. I forgot all about that. That's great. Let's get into some breadcrumbs. They're nice and short today. All in chapter 45. While underwater, they see ruins in the ocean. Quote, "The passing walls of the canyon floor, all of them carved with strange symbols. This was a highway, a grand avenue the mare once used to swim between great cities." Bryce said from the back, "I used to work at an antiquities gallery. My boss once brought in a statue from a sunken city. She said it was almost 15,000 years old, that it came from the original beneath." Clue to Jespa being 15,000 years old.
Yeah. Don't know why I missed that. Also in chapter 45, Rune asks whether the mare had a city down in the deeper part of the ocean. Sendez says, "We once had many things." Like in the time before the Asteri weakened them all with parasites.
Seriously.
Which, it is surprising how much of that groundwork is
Done. Yeah. Yeah, there is a lot of groundwork done. And it's funny because a lot of people don't feel like there is.
Yeah. But it's there.
Yeah.
It's there. I think it's the use of words like teleport and parasite. And I know it's because Lunathian is equivalent to our modern day in terms of technological advances. But it doesn't feel appropriate in a fantasy novel.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's true. I also think that this is just what happens when you have so many stories to tell.
Yeah.
You know, you can't spend time on things. You have to say one line, one sentence, and expect your reader to remember that in an 800-page book.
Yeah.
And
then 2 years later, when you give them another,
you're like, no, wait, I did mention that all the way back then.
Yeah.
Anyway, Amy, I got a question.
Yes.
What do the stories of gods tell us about our heroes as they ascend into their power?
It's funny because I helped write this question.
You wrote that question entirely on your own.
I have no... do I have an answer?
When you read that to me, I was like, thank God I'm not answering. I don't know what you were going for.
I don't know what I was going for either.
All right, let's analyze your question.
Okay, so what did we say about gods throughout this? Gods are primal and imperfect. They are selfish. So for us to suggest that Hunt is becoming godlike, that Bryce, as his mate, is a goddess, if we think about all the god references from Throne of Glass that we're seeing, you know, kind of reflected here, where gods are real beings who have their own agendas and motives. For Hunt and Bryce to be elevated to the status of a god or gods does not mean that they're perfect. It just means that they have enough anger and need for control to oppose other gods, the Asteri.
Nice. I think, and we're going to tap into the Maas verse for the discussion of gods. I think what we've seen is that gods can be just as weak as other characters. You know, the fact that they can be banished, forgotten, locked away. You know, when you think about Akatar, you have the mother and the cauldron. And the cauldron is literally a thing. You can just like put a blanket over it. You're fine. You know, and
I think it's a little more powerful than that.
Okay, like a heavy blanket. Weighted blanket.
You can rip its legs off.
Exactly. And it can't even handle that. Little bitch cauldron. Just angered it. But you have the mother. So, you know, I think those are the only ones that, like, the mother's really the only thing that we haven't had like a semblance of too much other than the mother. Here we have Luna, Chthona, Solus, Erd, but they're almost like they're dead gods to them. And I wonder if the gods are almost like a story of like, they're just, hold on, let's see if I can make this comparison, that they're just as weak, because the fact that Bryce and Hunt particularly, keeps getting compared to a god, but we know for a fact that they're nowhere near as strong as their Prythian counterparts. I think there's some semblance of the gods are weak and forgotten, just like Hunt and everyone's powers here have been weak and forgotten. Interesting. There's just something to, like, I feel like this is with Hunt taking in Bryce's power for the first time, I think there's something to be said about, you know, like, he's getting a hit of that pure stuff. Yeah. You know, that Prythian power. And that power is almost godlike. Yeah. To them. You know? Like, because Thea is almost talked about in a reverence type of way. Yeah.
It does make me think that if characters like Rhys had come over and helped Midgard,
They would probably fix it so quickly.
Right, but he
They'd
would
be
also be
gods.
revered as a god.
Yes.
For eternity.
Yeah. I do think about that of like, I don't think it undermines this story that they're not as powerful.
Yeah.
But it does make me kind of question them because like whenever, I mean, it's hard because like whenever you get, characters and it's like, who's stronger, this character, that character.
Mm-hmm.
But if you were to be like Aelin versus Farah, Rhys, and Rowan, I feel like they'd, all have a really good fair fight with them.
Yeah.
I think realizing that Bryce and all of them don't even match them even slightly.
Yeah.
It does kind of make it a little off-putting. I don't know if that's the right word. I don't know like what's the word I'm trying to use, but it is definitely like a, God, that kind of sucks that you guys aren't as strong.
It's a little disconcerting because it's not SJM's typical MO.
Mm-hmm.
It actually makes me appreciate these characters more that they're not as powerful.
Yeah.
And I think at the same time, because we've become accustomed to them not being so powerful, it's very off-putting when Bryce is able to access a lot of power in Flame and Shadow.
Yeah.
Whereas if she was in Prithian, we would never bat an eye.
True. I mean, Farah took on 7 High Lords' power, and she can do any of those things, right?
Yeah,
and
we're
like
fine with it in Mist and Fury.
Yeah, I'm like, all right, and what I'm seeing is that she hasn't mastered it. Hurry up.
Yeah. So I think SJM, I am guessing gets, and I've seen this on social media where ACOTAR characters, especially Farah, gets crapped on a lot because it fits the typical, oh, she's in a new world and she has all the power. She's the chosen one, right? Bryce gets there.
Yeah.
But it's not as easily accessible as it is for Farah. And she does rely on Hunt to be able to access that power. And she does have to learn a lot to get there.
Yeah.
So it is different. And I think SJM was trying to break her pattern.
Yeah, I think she's breaking her pattern. I think it's a commentary also of like, we are the masters of ourselves and this land because... you can also say that the parasites is like a larger conversation about pollution and it hurting us, right? Like these are Fae and Veneer just is so strong and they can do anything that they want. However, the parasites, which is like pollution in the water, is what's bringing them down, and they are, I know we have the Asteri, but like they've polluted themselves, and I think that this is the world that we're meant to most relate to.
Yeah.
So it's almost like we're god of ourselves and our own planets. Like we are capable of being our own gods in a way, but we destroy this planet as much as they let their planet be destroyed.
Yeah, we are self-destructive.
Yeah, just like the gods of their world.
Yeah.
That was a really roundabout way, but we think we got there. We think we got somewhere.
It was you know what? Even if we didn't answer the question, it was a very interesting conversation.
Will it make sense while I'm editing this? I don't know. In this moment, I feel like we did something. Later on, maybe not so much. But you know what? At the end of the day, kids, recycle. Thank you for listening to this week's episode of Book Talk for Book Talk with Jac and Amy. We encourage you to rate and subscribe to our show on your preferred podcast listening platform. Next week, we'll be exploring chapters 48 through 53 of House of Sky and Breath.
We would love to hear your thoughts based on today's conversation. You can submit your comments to our form at booktalkforbooktalk.com for a chance to have your feedback discussed during a future mini episode or on a Patreon exclusive episode.
If you're enjoying the podcast, please visit our website, booktalkforbooktalk.com, to view our latest merch and learn about supporting the show through Patreon or Venmo. You can follow us on TikTok or Instagram at the handle booktalkforbooktalk.
Bye.
I get into the weird mesmerized, hypnotic state reading these.
Yep. Yeah, it's like meditative.
Like I'm thinking words while my mouth does something.
Yeah, but I'm not actually present.
I'm not here. I'm in the other realm. I'm not where Bryce and Hunt are. Wish I was.
Fall has officially started here in Los Angeles, and that means we finally get to do fall activities.
I have been counting down the days for when I can go to pumpkin patches, maybe even hit up an apple orchard, and I get to do all of it looking super cute in my Quince boyfriend sweater.
This weather is perfect for my dark academia vibes, and I'm so excited to bust out my washable silk blouse because you know I'm going to be taking pictures.
Quince is known for their Mongolian cashmere sweaters from $50. And that's not all. Quince has so many other amazing things on their website.
All of those items are priced 50 to 80% less than similar brands.
That includes leather jackets, cotton cardigans, soft denim. Like my entire fall wardrobe is genuinely turning into Quince wardrobe.
By partnering directly with top factories and cutting out the cost of the middleman, we get savings as the customer.
One of my favorite parts about Quince is the fact that they only work with factories that use safe, ethical, and responsible manufacturing practices. And they still manage to get premium fabrics and finishes for that, luxury feeling for every item that they have.
Get cozy in Quince's high-quality wardrobe essentials. Go to quince.com/booktalk for free shipping on your order and 365-day returns. That's Quince, QUINCE.com/booktalk, BOOKTALK, to get free shipping and 365-day returns. That's quince.com/booktalk.